Photoshop, and you can see here that I have two files. This is obviously bonus file 1 and my bonus file 2, which is our Terminator. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to take bonus file 2 and move it over to bonus file 1, so it'll be placed on that layer. Now obviously there's a few ways we can do this, so I'm going to quickly recap on what we can do and how to actually move this layer to the next one. Okay, so there's a few ways of doing it. First things first, what we'll do is we will do the shortcut way, which is Control A, Control C, Command if you're on a Mac, and then Control or Command V, and this will place. I'm just going to grab my move tool. So we see this will obviously move our layer. We can see here now we have layer 1 above our gentleman. So back to bonus file 2. This can be done without shortcuts. So if I just deselect, Control D to deselect everything there, what I can do is I can come up to our select tab here in the menu, and I can go Control A. I can then go to Edit, and I can go Control C or Copy. And then when I'm on bonus file 1, I can go Edit and Paste, which is Control V. And then once again we can see that we have our image appear. We have layer 2. Now, because this image is obviously locked, I need to unlock it if I want to move it with the move tool. So I am going to click on the lock here of the background. This will make it layer 0, and I can then use the move tool by clicking and dragging. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. Now, by clicking and dragging the image onto bonus file 1, I can place, and it'll do the same thing. It will bring this layer onto this document, so we now have layer 3. And lastly, what I can do is I can go to either the layer here and go right click and go to duplicate layer. This can also be found in our layer option in the main menu with duplicate layer. So we can get it from our main menu, or we can right click on the layer itself and get duplicate layer. And this will allow us to name the layer. So we will name it metal face. It is obviously a picture of a Terminator. And we can choose where we want to put it. So we can make it a duplicate layer on the bonus file 2, which is the document we have open. We can make it a bonus layer, on bonus file 1, which is the document next to it. Or we can create a brand new document out of a duplicate as well. Now we're going to put it on bonus file 1. I will hit OK. Go to, move it over here, go to our bonus file 1, and we can see now that we have all of these layers. Now I don't need that many layers. Obviously we only need to work with our background and our metal face, so I'm going to just select multiple layers to delete at once. So if I want to delete layer 3, I can drag it to the bin here like so. But if I want to delete more than one layer at a time, if you hold shift, you can actually select 2 layers at a time. Okay, and then or more than 2, multiple layers at a time while holding shift, and we can delete them as well. Now I hope you're happy enough on how to actually open your files into another document, get those layers built up so you can now do your future work. For now, what we're going to do is we are going to work on masking. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is I am just going to get the opacity and raise it, lower it down so my metal face here of the Terminator becomes a little bit more see-through. On our move tool, I'm going to make sure I have show transform controls picked so I get these anchor points here. If you don't have this option, which you should, if you press Control T, you will get a transform option as well. You can also find this in the edit option for free transform. So Photoshop likes to give us about 3 or 4 ways to do everything. Now I'm just going to scale this image so we can try and fit everything together. We obviously want the eyes on the face to match. Now, it does not matter if it's kind of destructive. We don't need to hold shift to constrain properties. We just really need the actual face itself to kind of match in with the gentleman below. So we can do a bit of masking and make the image come true. So I'm going to move it to about there. I'm happy enough with that for now. Okay, and I'm just going to hit OK now. So every time you use the free transform on any image, you will always get a warning basically to say, do you want to confirm any sort of editing or alterations that you've done. So up the very top in our options bar here, we have a plus symbol, a tick symbol, which will obviously accept or confirm, and we have a cancel as well. Now these have shortcuts to them, so if we hit the enter key, we will confirm, or if we hit the escape key, we will cancel it. Okay, so I'm going to hit the enter key, like so. Now I'm just going to move the opacity back up to 100%. Our face is where we want it to put, because we know that we've gone and moved everything itself. And we're now going to add a mask. So we're going to add it from the layers panel. So down the bottom right here, if I just hit the layer mask icon, we will get a white mask. Now, in the previous lesson when I showed you masking, we kept our white masks and we used a black brush to make everything hide. So an easy way to remember how the colors work is that black is for conceal and white is for reveal. Just a nice way to remind yourself of what. So what we can see is here that the white mask will always keep the image revealed. There's ways of actually making this image start off as black. So what we can do is there's multiple ways. We can grab our paint bucket tool, which is hidden under the gradient tool if you are on the essential workspace. If you're on photography, you will find it under the 3 dots. With our paint bucket tool, I am going to just make my color picker black, and I'm going to press on our image, and you can see that our entire mask has turned black, so it has concealed or it has hid the actual image itself. So I'll do it again where I reveal it, paint bucket on white, and I reveal the image itself, and you can see that my mask has turned white. Okay. Now that's using the paint bucket to quickly turn the entire mask. We can use the paintbrush if you wanted to do it bit by bit with the hiding and the revealing. You can also use the inverse. Okay, so Control I is the shortcut, and that will, if you look at my mask where my hand is here, every time I press Control I, it will invert the colors. Okay, so this is working on the mask where I hide everything, but if I actually show you an inverse on this gentleman here instead, it works on any layer at all. Control I, and it will completely invert the colors for you. Just going to make sure I have my mask selected again, and we are on black. I am as well. Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to reveal parts of the metal face onto this gentleman here. I will zoom in on the face to make things easier. If you have your paintbrush on and you have it on white and you don't want to go to the zoom tool, a shortcut is Control plus and minus, and this will zoom in and out for you. Okay, I am also going to make sure that my brush is on a hard enough brush, so at 65% should be fine. And the size, once again, you can start with a big size if you want. If at any time you want to change the size of your brush as you go, you can use the square brackets, which is beside the letter P on a QWERTY keyboard, okay? And obviously one square bracket will make it smaller and the other will make it bigger. So we're just going to start adding in some detail here, like so. And I'm just going to type in. It doesn't matter how rough we do it at first, because we are going to refine everything that we do. I don't want the teeth to show, so now that I've gone and actually done it, that is black. Now, more shortcuts that I'm going to throw your way. When we are in this, obviously, there's different things we can do with our color picker. Obviously, we know that this icon here swaps the icons around, but as you're actually going and you're on a good pace, you don't want to keep coming over the toolbar back and forth. If you press the D key, this will reset your colors. Okay, so I'm just going to make this black and white here, and once I hit the D key, you will see that it resets my colors. If I make this white, red, sorry, or grey, it doesn't make much of a difference, and I hit the D key, it'll reset the colors back to black and white. Now, on your keyboard again, if you hit X, it will quickly swap between black and white, which is really good for masking, because obviously with our reveal and conceal, I can reveal what I want here, and if I'm not happy, I can hit X to swap the colors around, and I can quickly conceal everything again. Okay, so I'm going to leave that the way it is there. We'll just clean it up a little bit. And for now, we will just focus on the actual eye itself. And we can do any extra bits to the image as we go forward. So now that we've revealed what we want, obviously we're playing around with our layers and we are playing around with our masking. And it is possible to bring in other images of blood and scars and everything like that to make it look a little bit more realistic. But we're trying to avoid using selections, which we are going to cover obviously in later lessons. And we're going to try avoid using all of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something that is built into our layers, and it is in most versions of Photoshop. It dates back fairly, like obviously there's been updates, but it dates back quite to the older versions. And this is our layer styles. Every image, every layer that you have has its own layer styles that can affect the image itself. There's two ways of getting your layer styles. Now, from the drop down menu here, you can see that beside masking we have our layer styles. It is the FX key here for effects. Once I press on this, we will get a list of different effects, and the blending option up the very top will open up the layer styles menu for us. Okay, now I'm just going to cancel that down because a second way to get it, and once again, when you're in a good workspace and you're going quite fast and you don't want to slow down and figure out where everything is, if you double click on a layer, you will get the layer styles for that actual layer itself. Now, there's a lot of different layer styles in here, and they pretty much all say what they do with their names. Like a stroke, we'll put a stroke around the image. Inner shadow, we'll put a shadow on your selection. Inner glow, we'll do a glow. Gradient overlay, color overlay, pattern overlay will obviously overlay your image with a specific either gradient or pattern. And there's drop shadow, which is quite nice as well, which you'll probably find yourself using an awful lot. Now, the ones I'm going to focus on are our inner shadow. And I'm just going to make sure everything is on its default so you can see what I am actually doing. Okay, so I'm going to turn these off, and I'm going to start with our inner shadow. Now, obviously, inner shadow comes with a lot of different blend modes and everything like that, which is something that I haven't touched on just yet. So we're going to stick with our default of multiply. The blend modes are very similar to opacity, but they're mathematical calculations that Photoshop have built into the machine. Into the interface for different types of opacities, and then the opacity meter actually works with it as well. I will explain that a bit more as lessons go forward, but it's nice to kind of play around with yourself as well at any time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to change the color to a kind of darker red here on our blend mode, and so you can see what's happening. Play around with the size. So if you look at the image of the actual on my screen, if you're looking at the image of the metal face, you will see that there is a kind of inner shadow that is spreading as I move the size there. Now we're just going to have it at default of about 5, I'd say. We'll leave it at about 5. We're going to go to our inner shadow. We're going to do the same. We're going to go to blend mode, and I'm going to change it, the default of screen, we're going to change it to multiply. We're going to go to the color picker, and we're going to pick a red, like so, and the inner shadow. And once again, play around with the size so you can really see what's happening there. It is changing a kind of shadowy output on the inside of our selection here, our mask itself. Going to stick with about 10. So we're going to use it. Obviously, depending on the image you're using, you will have to play around with the size because it's going to look different on each image. These are the images that I will provide for everybody as well. Now, lastly, we're going to go to our outer glow. Now the outer glow, once again, we're going to go to our blend mode and change it to multiply. We're going to go to our color and we're going to change it to a kind of darkish red. We'll hit OK. And then we will play around with the size so we can kind of see what's happening on the face. Now I know out straight that I want to keep this very similar to the other ones. So I'm just going to hit about 8. And once we're done, we're going to either hit new style to save it or OK. And once we hit OK, you will see that my layer has now changed. Rather than being our default layer with just a mask on it, we now have the effects here, which we can turn on and off using the eyeball counter. This will turn obviously every effect we have on that specific layer. I can turn off the inner shadow. I can individual effects that we've done as well. You can see that the FX that is on this layer shows that we do have effects on this layer. Now, if you're working on a big project and you want to actually, this is getting in the way, you can obviously hit this little icon here, the arrow for up and down. This will hide the effects that we have. But the FX is there to let you know that there is effects on this there is layer styles on this actual layer itself. Okay. So now that we have actually gone and added the little effects on, there is a kind of red appeal underneath here, but obviously this doesn't look realistic or anything like that, and it would take an awful lot more effort and time to be put in to make it realistic. But a quick method that we're going to do for today is we're going to change our brush type. Okay, so on your brush, make sure you're on your mask as well. We're going to go up to our brush options here. Now, Photoshop comes with a lot of default brushes built into it. A lot of them are just our basic ones, which will affect our hardness and softness and size of the images themselves. But it also has a lot of different types of brushes built in, which brush tips, I suppose, it affects. And there's also flow pens. What we're looking for is a scatter brush. So these are our scatter brushes here. And once again, there is different scatter brushes built in. I will just select this one here, and what I will do is I will up the size of it so you can see, rather than having our base circle, it has this kind of look to it instead. So I'm going to use possibly this one here, and we'll just once again, we'll use this brush here. And what we're going to do is reducing the size of the brush, making sure that we are on, if we're on black, we will reveal. If we're on white, if we're on black, we will conceal. If we're on white, we will reveal. So it's up to yourself what way you want to do it. I'm going to stick with black for now, and I'm just ever so often going to just decrease and increase the size of my brush and just start pressing around the edge of my original mask. So we get this kind of look that the skin is still kind of overlapping the metal on the face itself, like so. So that way the image isn't so straight, the actual angles aren't so flat either. And that's just a quick way of actually getting how we want our image to look, like so. Now this can be done, obviously it is a normal paintbrush, so if we wanted to add more detail in, we can. I can use this like a normal brush where I can click and I can just start drawing on the brush itself, on the right there. Okay, I want to be on white because obviously white is going to reveal. And what I'll do is I'll just click and start drawing over the actual head itself to get this metal coming through. If you want to click around the edges to give the skin kind of look again, you can do so as well. And now it reveals. It looks more like a tattoo than the way we would normally do it with our extras. Obviously adding in blood and gore and adding in scars and everything like that would make it look a little bit more realistic. Underneath the eye we'll do the same. Change your scatter brushes if you need to. So we obviously have a bigger scatter brush here. There's a little bit more scatter to it. And I will just select under the eye and drag like so, if that's the way you want it. I might make that a bit thinner. So, and I'll go from the cheek up. You can start with a really small brush. Once again, drag up, go into the middle, make it a bit bigger, so it looks like it is cut. But once again, play around with yourself to see what you want. If there's anything you are unhappy with that you do originally and you want to keep masking, once again, make sure you flick the colors around. So you can either use X or the icon over here and just hide anything that you've done. Okay? We can just, and then we can, if we want to reveal any more of the image below, once again, we can do so by just clicking around the image itself to give a bit more detail. So we'll just join this up here, swap the colors around, and then start going around the edge, like so. So it looks like, once again, the skin is coming through. And there is our Terminator Man, and once again, it is quite quickly done. A lot more effort and a lot more time put into this, and you can make a really nice image of yourself or maybe a friend using your masking, using your layers as well in here. You could always add in your shape layers if you wanted to. I'm just going to zoom out. Okay, just going to zoom out here so we can see the image. Obviously, use your shape layers, use your text layers if you want to add any sort of graphics to it as well, which is very easily done. Your shape layers are down here. Don't forget you have custom shapes in here. So obviously I'll explain the custom shapes while I have you here as well. I have the entire default of custom shapes in here. What you might see, depending on what you picked, you might come and have only this amount in here. Now Photoshop does come with an awful lot of different shapes built into it, and you can load others in, but we are just going to hit all from the little cogwheel, and we'll get all of our shapes in here all together. Okay, perfect. Now, obviously what I'll do is, before we leave, obviously still on the topic of adjustments, I'm going to show you a clipping mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a color balance. Now the color balance is nice for affecting more than one image. To try, say, if you took a picture of yourself or a picture of a friend and moved them to another image, maybe somebody wasn't in the image originally, it's very easy using the color balance tone to affect the shadows, midtones and highlights of that layer. Now if I was to affect this now, if I put the cyan up, you will see that the entire image itself will be affected. Okay, but I only maybe want to affect the skull image here, okay, the actual metal face. So what I will do is I will right click and I will go to create clipping mask, and now I can come in. I will zoom back in on our character's face. I can come in here and I can add more a kind of color balance to it to match the skin tone and to match the light that is in the image here. So I'm going to up the red. I'll up the blue so we get it more of a metal kind of feel from the actual skin. If you want, you can obviously add a bit more yellowish. I mean, the yellow looks a bit more realistic. And then obviously your magenta and cyan there as well. So a bit more magenta in the image as well. And it's up to yourself to play around with what you think is going to look. So the red gives a more rusted kind of feel, and obviously the cyan will give a really bluish kind of tone to it. So, like so. Okay, so I'm happy enough with that. And once again, the clipping mask is here. So I'll show you a clipping mask once again one more time. So I'm just going to go to adjustments. I will add on a curves, and if I affect without a clipping mask, you will see it affects absolutely everything. But if I add a clipping mask, it will only affect the actual image that the clipping mask is attached to. Okay, so if I drag this down to our gentleman and I make a clipping mask, right click, you will see that it only affects the actual picture of the gentleman and not the metal face in any way. Okay, and I suppose that we'll do is we will just delete that. We don't need the curves itself. If you do want to do any color alterations or anything, do play around with your adjustment layers more. You can obviously add a black and white filter if you want to make everything just black and white. It is move up top here, if that's what you prefer. If you want to add another color balance on, obviously that is affecting the entire image and not just this, that can be done. So we can add a second color balance on. This one is a clipping mask, so it only affects here, and this one, it will affect every layer underneath it. So once again, we can kind of make a cooler tone to the image itself, like so. Okay, so we'll leave it at that then. Okay, what I will do, just so we can show differences, I will also duplicate this layer. Control J to duplicate the background copy. Okay, now I've had a few questions about this as well from students, so I'm going to cover it before this lesson finished as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between our merge visible, and our flattened image. Okay, so if we go up to image, okay, sorry, layer. If we go up to layer here, you will see that we have shortcuts obviously for, but we have merge down, merge visible, and flatten image. Okay. If you right click on a specific layer that you've chosen, you will get the same options: merge layers, merge visible, flatten image. So our merge layers, if I select these three layers here holding shift and I right click, I get the option to merge layers. This will merge and put all of the layers that we have selected into one single layer. So I'm just going to press on here, and you can see that everything has now been placed in this layer itself. So I'm just going to step back and undo that. If I want to merge them in a different way, if I turn off the actual eyeball here, okay, and I right click, the merge visible will merge all of the layers that only have the eyeball turned on. So once again, I'm going to step back with Control Z, turn these back on, and then our flattened image, if I right click and go to flatten image, will flatten absolutely everything together. Everything that is in our layers panel into one layer. One more time, I'm going to step back, Control Z, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all of these 4 images here. I will right click and I will merge layers. So now I can show you the before and after of what the work we've actually done. So if I just toggle this eyeball on and off, you can see the metal has come through, you can see the color changes, everything that we've actually done. Now this is destructive, and majority of the time, and what I would recommend is that you don't flatten your image, that you save it as a PSD with all of the layers in it, and then you save out as a JPEG or whatever you want file format you want to save as, so you still have the PSD in case you want to do further editing, in case you want to come back and do more editing to the image at a later stage. You still have the PSD there. That is what I would recommend. But the flattened images is there. Obviously I had a few people asking me about it, so I just wanted to make sure I covered it as well. So that is the end of this lesson. Obviously, because there is no proper support with this, because it is an on-demand